Hi, I'm Ben, we're Battle Systems. Welcome to the assembly tutorial for the Great Hall of Khaarastad. Before we get started, there's a few quick tips that will apply to almost any build. Quickly run through those now. For many builds, we'll use these plastic clips to put walls together and things. There's a range of different types, most of them are self-explanatory. There are a few that you should pay a little bit of attention to. We have some slightly shorter versions of the straight clip, and these two in particular can look quite similar. As you can see, they build at different angles, and so if you're finding yourself getting a bit confused by how a corner is going together, it's because you've got two different types of clip and you need to use the correct one for it. The main difference between them is that one forms a right angle and the other doesn't. From time to time you might come across a slot which is a little too tight. It's a good idea to have a craft knife on hand for this sort of thing. You could just slice down the edge of it to adjust the gap, or another good tip is to use a pair of clippers and just snip and adjust, and then you should find you have a nice neat fit. Some of our terrain has half cuts in it. This allows us to add things like opening doors or to create round shapes for things like barrels. The first time you bend these, it's worth taking a little bit of time just to open it correctly. And if you can see here, for this door for example, you just need to make sure you support it the first time you open it, to make sure that the bend happens in the correct place, and then your door will open and close without causing any issues with the rest of the wall piece. For most of this work you're going to just be using your hands to pop out the sheets, but it's useful to have some glue, some clippers, a craft knife and a cutting mat just to hand so you can do the certain parts which I'll show you as we go through. This set comes with the great entrance sheet, staircase sheet, 2 copies of the Great Hall accessories, and a final sheet of accessories. The great door is made from these components. We have 2 pillars, an arch that goes over the top, and the door itself. This piece is designed to work alongside your existing dungeon terrain, so you're going to need some of the clips from that, and also some walls to connect it to. Once you have the walls ready for you to attach them, you need to create the pillars. So we're going to use these half cuts to fold them around to make them into a pillar shape. And then we clip these onto the walls. So there's a hook here. We need to hook it through, and then there's a slot at the bottom to slot it into. This side here needs to be attached with a clip. Depending on what you're going to attach it into from here, you may want to use a T-clip or maybe an X-clip, especially if you're going to be building out to the back of it. For this case, I'll use an X-clip. Slide one of those in on the bottom. Slot this into here. Then you also need one up at the top. So we'll slot one of those in there. Okay, and then we'll do the same on the other side. Once those are assembled, it's just a matter of attaching them to the door itself. So clip them on. It's a good idea to make sure you're holding the side of the frame here while you're pushing it together, because there's a little bit of weakness where the door is. Once we have the basic structure of the door all finished, there are a few finishing touches from the accessory sheet that we'll need to pop out. So there are some sconces, a clip to hold them in place, and then some clips which will be used to attach this arch to the top of the door. So first of all, we take our sconce and we slot it into this slot here. And then these clips slide in from above. And finish off the look and hold it nice and tight. And then these clips sit on top of the door. And are used to attach this part to create a nice three-dimensional effect for the doorway. The throne goes together like most of our chairs, and it has these parts on it. There's a seat and a back. We need to slot those together. And then we can slide the arms on. And that's the throne done. A grand dining hall isn't much fun without some guests, so here's a gong to summon them. It's made out of these parts. I start by building the frame. You'll see on one side there is a little notch, so you need to make sure those are at the front. And then this piece slots into the front to start making the frame. And then the gong itself slots in at the top. Be careful to reinforce this whilst you attach it. And there is your gong. The banquet table is made from these parts. There's a tabletop, frame, and the legs. First part to start with is the frame. We just need to hook the candle through the hole and make sure that this slot is underneath the axe. And then you just slide them together until they lock in place. And then it's just a matter of attaching the legs. And as easily as that, dinner is served. The accessory sheet has a number of different items on it. It has some columns, some more parts that we can use with the great door, the clip we already used, and the sconces. Can also be used to create this dais, table, some chairs, and a brazier. Once you have everything from the sheet popped out, you're going to want to put these parts to one side because we're going to use those on the next sheet. The great door parts are just some scatter essentially, and they are just placed on top of each other to create a step. These are the parts that you need for the columns. You've got these base clips and a clip to go in the middle, and two column parts, and a sconce we can attach to it. What's cool about these is they come in two forms. You can simply pop the top off and then you have a shorter ruined column, and then you can just slot this on top again to make a full-size one. So first thing we'll need to do is fold through all these half cuts. Once you've formed it into a hexagon shape, you can then take the two base parts. These rings are identical, so just pick one of them, slot it on top, and then this part clips into the bottom. Friction will hold this in place, but this is a an example where I might stick a little bit of glue on it and then just store it assembled. But it is perfectly fine to just pop it apart and rebuild it again. It's just a bit of a time saver, really. That's the base part sorted. And then we do pretty much the same for the top. Then we use the ring to hold it together, making sure checked which way up it goes. This will hold itself together. Again, a spot of glue might be a good idea, that's up to you. And that can just slot on the top or come off. And then the final finishing touch is to add a sconce. There's a little slot in it. You just hook it through and then lock it in place with this clip here. On this sheet there are some places to sit, so we've got a chair and we've got a bench. The chair goes together as they always do from the fantasy set onwards. Just slot them in until you have a nice little chair. You can pop a bit of glue on it just to hold it permanently. Likewise for the bench, it's just a matter of slotting it together. The round table has a base and a tabletop and a little clip, which is slightly easy to miss, so make sure you pop that out, and that will go on here when we finish. So the first thing we'll need to do with this is to clip together the base, and then the top will just slide in nice and easily there, and finally this little clip slides in from this side and just clips everything in nice and tight. Then you have these parts here, which are just some scatter basically, and you can choose which ones of those you want to put on there. So you could have some books if you're more of a wizard, and an axe, or cutlery as we call it if we're a barbarian. The brazier goes together from these parts, and you just have to slot together the base and the flames, and then place this ring on top, this one here, and finally the outer ring like so. And then we can place the fire in there. This is a piece that I would almost certainly use a bit of glue on. That way you can just pop in your box and not think about it again, instead of potentially losing some of these little rings. The dais has a top, 2 steps and a base. The best place to start with it is with the base and the middle step. And that just slots into these little slots here. And then this part has some slots which will just hook into here. And then finally, you just put the top on, and you'll notice there's a little slot here. We just need to line that up with the back piece here. Make sure that these clips slot in. And that is your dais all done. On this second sheet of accessories, we've got some rugs, scatter, some delicious food roasting over a spit, a weapon rack, and some banners. And for those banners, we're going to need to take the pieces we set aside from the last sheet, because we're going to need that for this build as well. Now that you've got the banners from this sheet and the fixings from the previous sheet, we can just clip these together, and you'll also need one other component, which is a wall to hang them from. So we just take this part here, clip it across the top, and then you take a wall piece and you find the slots at the top of it and simply slide those together. That leaves you with a nice little hook here. It allows you to slot your banner in That creates a nice three-dimensional looking banner, and you can obviously unhook that one and swap it out for a different one. And then of course you just take this and you attach it to the rest of your walls. The Kindling store is effectively a barrel with a different texture, so we'll do that in exactly the same way we would a barrel, which is to bend through all the half cuts until you have a cylinder, and then stick the base in and let it dry. And then once it's secure on the bottom, you can use another little bit of glue just around the edge, and then along here, and just bend it round and glue it together. Hold it in place for a few minutes just while it sets. Once it's dry, you can just drop some kindling into it and pop it wherever you want. The weapon rack is composed of 2 legs, a central section, and a clip that goes across the top. So the first thing we'll need to do is clip the legs on, bend down this section where there's a little half cut till it's flat, then take the clip, and the clip just slots in across the top to hold it nice and secure. And then you can hook any weapons onto it, or if you prefer, you can dab a little spot of glue on there to hold them on permanently. To make the spit, we're going to start with these parts. Take these slots and clip them in like so. And then we do the same at the other end. That gives us the basis of the frame. And then we have these parts here. And with these, you need to make sure you have the inner clip here on the inside. And then the same with the other one, the inner clip on the inside. Then we can take these parts, slot them in on the outer clip here. That gives you the basic structure. You can then decide whether you want to have it in use or abandoned. And you've got this texture here which you can flip over depending how you want it to look. So we'll slot that in. I'm going to have this one set up like it's roasting some delicious food. We just slot that in there. Paste this piece on top. And then you can hook the spit itself however you like. And then if you prefer, you can come back later, you can remove this, pop this part out, slot this back in, place this back on top, and then you've got an abandoned cooking area. The Great Staircase is one of the focal points of the Great Hall. It comes with 2 flights of stairs. Those are composed of 2 landings, a set of stairs, some railings, and there's one special piece in case you want to just make a single flight of stairs. To assemble these, you need to first make a little bend along here on the half cut to create the stair on the landing. And then you do the same for each of the steps, bending them till you have a full set. Once you have your stairs sorted, you then need to take your 2 railings and make sure you have slots at the bottom and these slots at the top. And then you just slide each stair in. Then you make sure all of your stairs are straight. Finally, you take one of your landings and you slide that into place. that gives you your basic stair, and then we'll do the same with the other one. These can then be put together either facing one way or the other way. The trick to this is to do with these slots here. And so those allow you to put these railings on. Which way you want your staircase to face will determine which of the stairs you want at the top. So if you wish it to face this way, you're going to need to use this piece. So you can put the railings on like this. If you wish it to face the other way, you want to use the other staircase. And then the railings can slot in along here because the slots are in the correct place. The stairs don't work really on their own. You need to have a supporting wall for them, so I'll quickly show you how that works. So here I've built a 3-story high wall with a corner, and then it's just a matter of making sure you have a T-clip here, and then we slot the first flight in here, and then with the second flight we place it above the first flight, and I've used a corner clip here. And then we just make sure that the bottom step is resting on top of the first flight. And that gives you your 2-story staircase. To change the orientation, you just have to swap this flight for this flight so that you have the slots for the railings in a different place. So we'll just quickly do that now and I'll show you how that is. And then it's now pointing in the other direction. Your final option with this is to have just a single flight. So I've quickly rebuilt this as just a 2-story, and then we'll take the landing off and we'll replace it with this stair, and the stair you can see is different because it's got a cut here. We'll slide that in instead. And that gives you a different single-story alternative for it. Okay, so here I've set up the dungeon with a nice layout with some adventurers running across it. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to strip it down, we're going to drop in the Great Hall elements, and I'll show you how it completely converts it into a totally different look. And just like that, you've got a hall grand enough for a king, ready for your party to plunder and loot, or maybe just take a long rest. Until next time, happy gaming.